In 2015, I had prostate cancer, 51 years old, imagine. Well, now it's 2024, almost 9 years later, and when I thought I was cured, I might have been jumping the gun because it looks like prostate cancer is coming back. But the second time, I have a plan, and I'm going to beat it and put it to rest for good. Watch this.
This podcast deals with prostate cancer, surgery, medication, and other medical topics. The host is a prostate cancer survivor who is recounting his experience with treatment. He is not a medical professional, and you should not use his commentary as medical advice. Please always consult a medical professional when learning about and understanding prostate cancer or any other disease.
My name is Mark, and this is Chapter 2 of Mark's prostate cancer experience. I started this series back in 2015 when I originally was diagnosed with prostate cancer. At that time, I had my prostate removed, things looked great, the PSA dropped to 0, and all was good and fine. However, almost 9 years later, my PSA has risen above 0.2. It's at about 0.4 right now. So here's my program. I am going to do 6 weeks of Orgovix, not the 2 months or the 8 weeks, which is typical. The reasoning there is Orgovix starts quicker and ends quicker when you finish with it. So I've spoken to several specialists who have told me even if I started just 4 weeks before radiation, that would be okay. But I'm going to err on the side of caution, and I'm doing 6 weeks. I'm on my 3rd day now of Orgovix. There really isn't any side effects that I can think of. But as of the 3rd day, there's no hot flashes, nothing happening, but I think it's way too early. I believe in 3 or 4 weeks' time, I will be feeling the brunt of what these ADTs do. So 6 weeks of Orgovix, then 39 sessions of proton radiation. There's 2 different types of radiation that are typically used, IMRT and proton. IMRT is what they call photon radiation, and then proton is proton radiation. And the basic difference is IMRT is more like an X-ray where they isolate the area in your prostate bed where they believe the cancer cells are. And typically it's the area where your prostate was removed, and they radiate you. And the radiation goes in one side of the body, treats the area, and then exits the other side. And it hits everything on its path with the same level of radiation. But they try to aim things so that it's basically bone and muscle. They're not really hitting any of the organs if they can avoid it. So, and it's very common. A lot of people do IMRT. So with proton, the energy enters your body. When it hits the area it wants to treat, and I don't know how this works, but it just does, then only in the area of treatment, the energy is released, and then the excess energy exits your body at a low dose. So it's weak when it enters your body. It comes alive in the area they want to treat, and then it weakens before it exits. And this is very relevant too when they're radiating tumors. If they have a tumor they want to radiate, they can be very precise with proton. So in terms of radiating the prostate bed, whether it's IMRT, photon, or proton, they're just blanketing an area with radiation. And the only real difference is where the radiation hits on the way in or out. So after 39 weeks, I will stay on Orgovix probably for 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks. I'll make that decision at that time. And then in the months that follow, it's really just following up and monitoring and testing for PSA. The PSA score may remain intact for several months following radiation because the radiation is not actually killing the cells. It's killing their ability to replicate. That's how radiation works. So typically 6, 8, 9 months after a radiation session is when they really can understand the results of it. And in the meantime, you just keep on enjoying life and hoping for the best. So the interesting thing is when you have prostate cancer recurrence, it's not a tumor that they can detect or they can find. If it's more advanced, you'll be able to see it at what's called a PSMA test, which is a specific test for prostate cancer. It's a PET scan, and it will go through your entire body. And if it sees prostate cancer, it will light it up in the test and they can eradicate it on the spot. But in many cases like mine, the PSA test is suggesting there's recurrence. The PSMA test doesn't see it. So they don't really know where it is. They know it's there. They know something is producing PSA, but they can't quite pinpoint it. And so the belief, and this seems to be the standard, is the way you eradicate this potential recurrence is to radiate the prostate bed where the prostate was, because it stands to reason that that's where these microscopic cells are that they can't see. It's unlikely that it would have spread because it's such a low grade number, but the approach now is to, as this second chapter unfolds, have radiation, treat the area, and it's a field you spray with radiation, and the belief is within that field will be these cells, and that should take care of it for life. So that's exactly where I'm at right now. And I'm making this video, and actually this chapter 2 is kind of like a sub-series of the regular Mark's prostate cancer experience, because I'm going to be documenting everything from the start of taking ADT through the radiation itself, through the follow-up, and everything that happens in between. So this first episode of chapter 2 will be a little bit lengthy because I'm going to cover a few different areas. But in the weeks that follow, there'll be a little shorter updates from time to time. I'll let you know what my mind is feeling, what my body's feeling. And this will be broadcast both in video form on YouTube as well as in audio form on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So I will have a few visuals, but if you're listening to this and not viewing it on YouTube, you will certainly get all the points that I'm making. So I'm going to cover diet, hormone therapy, radiation therapy, exercise, glucose monitoring, which is actually part of the diet portion of it, and just about everything else that I experience in the next, 4, 5, 6 months. I am going to start off, though, talking about the preparation for the radiation and the use of ADT, androgen deprivation therapy. So many of you have heard of things like Lupron, which seems to be very common. And the reason Lupron and similar therapies are used in conjunction with radiation is because prostate cancer cells, their main source of fuel is testosterone. And so if you deprive them of testosterone, which is what the ADTs do, they become weak, maybe go dormant. And so when you hit them with radiation, they're very easy to kill and very easy to eradicate forever. If you don't have ADT and you radiate, it probably does a decent job, but the studies have shown that dormant cells really, really suck in the radiation and it kills them. So that's why typically ADT is done. Now, the regimen for most people, let's say taking Lupron, and I'm going to talk in a few moments about the different types of ADTs because I'm not taking Lupron, I'm doing something different. But the typical protocol is prior to radiation, about 2 months before, you'll get a shot of Lupron in your arm, and it's about a 3-month, sometimes a 6-month shot. And the rationale there is it takes about 2 months for the Lupron to really rid your body of testosterone production and starve the cells. So 2 months later, when you go into radiation, the cells are dormant or eradicated or starving. And then let's say you have radiation. It's typical, 6 weeks is typical. You have the radiation, and then you stay on the Lupron or the ADT for another 2 months or so. And the reason there is because even after radiation, there's this lingering effect where, I always thought of radiation as being kind of like a laser beam. You kind of zap them and they go away. What radiation does to cells in the body, and this is my understanding, but it inhibits their ability to reproduce. So it kills them, but they don't disappear instantly like you would think. So the rationale is in the 2 months that follow, the radiation effect is still lingering somewhat, and you want to keep the radiation cells in that state of starvation or being dormant, so to really just kind of finish the job properly. So that's typically the protocol. Different hormone therapies, they fall into 3 different categories, and I'm referring to some material here because I'm still learning of all of this myself, but the research shows me there's something called an agonist. The other type is called an antagonist. And the third type is called an anti-androgen monotherapy. So what does all this mean, and how does this work, and how does one differ from the other? Well, Lupron, which is what you hear mostly of when it comes to testosterone-reducing hormones, is what they call an agonist. And the way an agonist works, the way that Lupron works, is it hits your body, and it's your pituitary gland in your brain is what tells the testes to produce testosterone. They basically come from your balls. And so what Lupron does is it tells that gland to really start producing testosterone, almost to the point where it's out of control. And the approach there is it drives the body crazy. And at some point, usually about a month or two after starting this therapy, it kind of just runs out of gas. So the pituitary gland says, you know what, I'm pumping all this messaging out to produce testosterone and I'm exhausted. So I'm done. I'm not producing any more testosterone for you because I'm completely wiped out. That's the layman's version as I understand it. What happens then when you go on Lupron, since there's this immediate surge in testosterone production, they sometimes give you an anti-androgen monotherapy. Casodex is the brand that you hear a lot of. And what that does is it initially negates it a little bit because you're trying to reduce the amount of testosterone in your body, and yet you're taking a hormone to do that. And yet in the first few weeks or first month, the exact opposite happens. You get all types produced. And so there's a fear with more aggressive prostate cancer that, a lot of testosterone maybe isn't such a good thing. But it's common. What people like about this therapy is it is a shot that you get once or twice and then you're kind of done with it. The problem with agonist is when you're finished your therapy, so let's say you're on 6 months of Lupron, when you stop taking Lupron, it doesn't stop the effect it has in your body right away. It can take months. It can take 6 months. It can take a year. So you stop taking Lupron, your body is still deprived of testosterone, and all the side effects that I'm going to talk about shortly, they'll remain. They don't disappear right away. So it's effective, but it's a much longer, drawn-out approach to this hormone therapy. And remember, we're taking hormone therapy to make the radiation work as best as it can. The other type of hormone therapy, which is the path that I've chosen, is what's called an antagonist. So the agonist is the hormone therapy that tells your brain, produce as much testosterone as you can, and then you're going to poop out and you're kind of done. An antagonist is really just, it's more of a blocker. It prevents the brain, it sends a message to the brain, just don't produce the signals to create testosterone, and it works very quickly. It's almost a magical way of doing it. The net effect of an antagonist and an agonist is that testosterone is reduced in the body. Now, the great thing about antagonists is that they are typically delivered in pill form. And there's a brand name called Orgovix, which is what I plan on taking. I'm on my 3rd day of Orgovix, and I'm going to talk about that in just a little bit. So with Lupron, you get a shot. It boosts all the testosterone in your body. Your body then gets exhausted and says, I can't do this anymore. And no more testosterone is produced until the Lupron goes away. And even then, it's much later. With Orgovix, the antagonist, you take a pill every day, and all that does is it stops the brain from telling your balls to produce testosterone. So it seems like it's a much better approach. A nice thing also about an antagonist like Orgovix is since it is a daily pill, each day's worth of the pill is just enough to keep the brain from sending those signals. So when you're done your therapy, and let's say you stay on Orgovix 2 months after radiation, you stop taking the pill, and almost immediately the brain starts producing the messaging to increase testosterone again. So it's a much quicker recovery. And, there are pros and cons. If you don't want to deal with the hormones every day, then you get the shot, you're done with it. But I like the approach of Orgovix much better. The third approach, now I mentioned something called Casodex. Casodex is an anti-androgen monotherapy. What's really good about Casodex is the way that it works. So the antagonist and the agonist, the way they work is they stop your brain from producing the message that produces testosterone. What Casodex does is it doesn't reduce the testosterone in your body, but it inhibits the hormone producing cells from receiving those signals. So it becomes more like a blocker. So the other therapies stop the signal from your brain, stop the signal from producing testosterone. This type of monotherapy just becomes a block and in the way. And for a while, Casodex was quite widely used. The problem with this approach is that think of it as, a wall barrier between your brain and any of the cells producing cancer. And since it's a wall, think of a dike, that old story of the guy with the finger in the dike. There is a chance that it's not as effective in all areas. It's not just one blanket that works universally. It does have its flaws. So it's somewhat successful. The great thing is your testosterone levels are still there. So you don't have all those side effects you get with the other therapies, but it's not as sure of a thing. So the chance that it won't prevent cells from growing is potentially quite high. So they don't use it that much anymore. Where Casodex is used mostly right now, it's taken at the beginning of a Lupron therapy session just to prevent that extra boost of testosterone from having an effect in the body. But as a standalone therapy, it's really not recommended. Now, let's get on to Orgovix. So this almost sounds like a commercial for Orgovix, but I so believe in this approach. Anytime you deprive the body of testosterone, that's either with Lupron or with Orgovix, there are a number of potential serious side effects. I have a sheet here from the Orgovix people. I'm gonna read some of the side effects that they claim are potentially there. And I want to cover these side effects because I have several techniques to eliminate or to mitigate these as much as possible, and I want to share those with you. So with Orgovix, and this is pretty much true for Lupron as well, the side effects are hot flashes. They call it hot flushes here, but hot flashes apparently are what are quite common, quite typical, and that's that real hot feeling you get. Not too uncommon female menopause, actually, but just remember, all that we're doing here, this is all very temporary, but it's just something we have to kind of deal with. Increased blood sugar levels. A lot of people report they put on weight when they go on hormone therapy, and that is true. That is true, but there are ways to thwart against that. Increased blood fat levels, joint pain, decreased blood hemoglobin levels, liver enzyme increase, tiredness, constipation, diarrhea. Boy, doesn't that sound like a great old time, right? Well, these are the side effects that are very common and typical. You can mitigate these side effects with diet, with exercise. I'm going to talk a little bit about that, as I said. But interestingly enough, I started Orgovix just a few days ago. My first dose, the next morning, I had diarrhea right away. It happened, but it hasn't occurred since. I think it was just sort of a bit of a shock to the body. I am expecting to start to see some of these side effects with the next couple of weeks. So I'm not even halfway through my first week yet, so most of these will not occur. So what's commonly understood is the best way to avoid many of these side effects during your treatment is to exercise. And it doesn't mean become a crazy fiend, but I would say 3 times a week is the minimum. Get yourself to a gym, get yourself a personal trainer if you can. I realize that's not always possible. And you want to focus on not cardio, not treadmill, although it never hurts to have some cardio, but you want to focus on body movements and weight training and resistance training. So that means legs, arms, abs, shoulders, the whole 9 yards. And you want to focus on repetition, not so much heavy weight. It's good to have certainly weight because that works the muscles, but you want to focus on repetition. And it seems that those men who have done this consistently during their hormone treatment have had minimal side effects. And, a little bit of hot flashes here and there, but not as severe as people have stated. Another part of this is your diet. So apparently, and I haven't gone through this yet because I'm just at the beginning, apparently because of blood sugar levels, because there's less testosterone in your body, it's very easy to start putting on weight. And I have developed a diet program that I'm going to publish in a different YouTube series, but I want you to have a look at this picture because this is the before and after picture of me last year. So on the left side, there was a picture I was in French Polynesia and we did a group photo. And I looked at this picture when I got home and I said, oh my gosh, this is nuts. Look at this. But 6 months later, there's the new me on the right side. And is that not a significant difference? The funny part is I got from the left side to the right side by eating more food and eating properly and also working with the glucose monitor. So I'm not going to go through the whole diet, but the essence of how I got from the left side to the right side is quite simple. I wanted to see how my body reacts to different foods with respect to insulin and blood sugar. So for the last year, I've been wearing one of these. This is called a glucose monitor. This is made by Abbott. It's the Freestyle 3. There's another one that I believe it's Dexcom is available. And this is typically what a diabetic would wear if they wanted to monitor their blood sugar in real time, 24 hours a day. Diabetics that don't have such a monitor, they prick their finger once or twice a day or something. But this is a valuable monitor because what it shows you is how your body reacts to food. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples here that really demonstrate the use of the monitor. So here's a graph over a 12-hour period of me eating how I used to eat. So you see these zags, these ups and these downs. What every spike is signifying here is a spike in insulin in your body. And when insulin spikes, it prompts these cells to start absorbing the sugars you're eating and store them as fat. So that's the plain and simple of it. So if you're eating food, your regular diet, and you have a glucose monitor and you see a pattern like this, it means you need to start looking at the food you're eating and try to find what foods do not give you the insulin spike. The way that you know you have achieved this is when your 24-hour graph looks like this. This means that with all of your eating, there has been a very consistent insulin level. And when I say insulin level, it really translates to blood sugar. So think of insulin, blood sugar in the same context here, but these monitors measure insulin rises and drops. So the goal to losing weight and to being neat and trim is to just day after day eat the right foods that get you this kind of a graph. So what do the foods look like? Well, you certainly cannot have McDonald's and French fries and all these sorts of things, but you can have cheat days and there are surprisingly a lot more foods that you can eat. So this diet, for the most part, it's sort of a version of a keto diet, but not exactly, because a keto diet is strictly no carbs. You just eat whatever you want, cheese, bacon, burgers without the bun. But it's hard to always find good keto foods because you get bored from them after a while. The version of this diet that I've done is I've based it on keto, meaning I look at non-carby foods like meats and many vegetables, and you then add low glycemic foods. So some fruits are acceptable. Berries are fantastic. Bananas and pineapples are very high in glycemic score, so they will tend to cause a sugar spike. But you start to look and find things. So on a keto diet, you would never have beans. Beans are typically okay when mixed with other things. And a lot depends also on the order that you're eating. So I'm actually formalizing this entire diet program. Like I said, I will create a different YouTube channel just on health and fitness because I want to document this return to thinness that I went through by following this program. So when you're eating your food and even constructing your meals, there appears to be a certain order of eating that keeps these graphs at this very sustainable level. So the idea is you want to eat first, you want to eat your fibers, your oils, your fats, So as an example, leafy vegetables, a salad with cheese and oil on it. You then want to follow that with your proteins. So your meat, your chicken, your fish. And then finally, anything that has carbs in it, beans, maybe a little bit of rice, maybe a little bit of bread. You want to have these last. And what seems to happen is when you have the carbs last, your body already has the fats and the cheeses in it to prevent the cells from absorbing that extra sugar. It's kind of a whole thing, but I'm telling you, my friends, it works so well because in that picture I showed you, that was 6 months worth. And since that, I've not put on the weight and it works amazingly well. So anyway, diet is part of it, but this is all about mitigating the effects of the ADT that you're going to be taking. So you want to exercise, you want to eat well. And another side effect of these ADTs is your emotional state. It is not uncommon for a gentleman on ADT right in the middle of it to break down and cry, to have mood swings. Sounds a lot like female menopause, quite actually. But as I said, this is a temporary effect which stops when you stop taking the hormone therapy. But there's a lot you have to prepare yourself for. And I think if you're well prepared, you probably will come out well. And that is the purpose of this podcast. I am going to put my money where my mouth is, so to speak. And as I go through my hormone therapy, I'm going to focus on exercising. I'm going to focus on my diet. I'll be videoing some of the things that I do. So I'll be showing kind of maybe some of the exercises that are helpful. But what I want to demonstrate is that with this positive mindset and the proper exercise and the proper food, that when the hormones are at their peak, working their best, that these side effects will be minimized or potentially not even happen at all. I don't quite have that expectation, but I'm expecting minimal hot flashes. I'm expecting minimal weight gain, but we'll see. We'll see. So that's what I want to share with you. There's not a lot of content other than, there's chatter of people that have gone through horrific experiences with hormone therapy. And I want to try to demonstrate that we can get through hormone therapy, minimizing these side effects. So that's my goal. And I'm going to be the guinea pig in all of this. So with a bit of luck, this will be the last and final chapter in my own treatment. Of course, I will keep sharing everything that I learn, every experience that I have with anyone who is newly diagnosed with prostate cancer or is facing recurrence. I do read a lot of comments and blogs and follow other podcasts. And a lot of men really have a problem with all of this. Well, mentally, of course, but they're ill prepared. They don't know what to expect. The emotion that comes through quite a bit is fear of the unknown, fear of side effects, physical side effects, incontinence, erectile function. And so I think the more that we address it and talk about it and share our experiences and really show that medical science has advanced so far. And even since 2015, when I first was diagnosed with prostate cancer, the technology has advanced so much. I might have made other choices today. If I was newly diagnosed, I might have waited longer and just see what happens. So this is an experience that I want to continue to share with everybody. If you are somebody either facing a first round of prostate cancer or recurrence, stick with me. I got you on this. I'm going to try to learn as much as I can from my own experience, but also from doing research. And I'm hoping over the course of this year to start doing some podcast interviews with doctors and specialists where we can learn what's the latest and greatest in treatment and follow-up treatment. And what's especially amazing today is even if there is a recurrence after your radiation, so a third recurrence, there are medical technologies now and a whole new level of drugs that you can take that really keep you alive till the end of days. So we're not going to die from this. But that is it for this very long first session of chapter 2. I'm going to be posting every time there's an eventful topic, whether it's my first occurrence of side effects from the Orgovix, or the days leading up to radiation, or even try to sharing with you some of the meal plans that I put together for myself. And by the way, the diet that I'm on, I do believe it's helpful when you are on hormone therapy for recurrence or even for any reasons. But in general, these are great diets just to live your life by, because even prior to recurrence, this diet, I went on it because I looked at myself in a photo and I said, this is like way too much. I have a belief that nobody who's overweight lives a long life. If you think about it, you rarely see an overweight person live to late years. So the idea is to thin down, keep yourself in good shape. And so if anything, we will hopefully get some lifestyle choices in play here that you can live by and create a better life for yourself as well. That's it for this session. I really want to encourage all of you to keep watching, keep listening, send me your comments. I'm trying to answer as many as I can as they come in. And let's look forward to beating all of this together and enjoying a long and healthy life. Thank you, guys.